Looking to expand your borders and spam your build queue with new strategy games in 2020? Well, keep watching. The Chinese philosopher and general Sun Tzu once said, "Opportunities multiply as they are seized." And I think what's clear centuries later is that he was referring to what a great year for strategy games 2020 is shaping up to be. Armchair Machiavellis have got cosy old classics coming back with lustrous modern remasters, new installments to towering franchises that once formed the bedrock of the genre, and new treats with huge potential too. So let's gently lower ourselves into a great big bathtub full of exciting strategy games in 2020. Subscribe to Logitech G if you haven't already, and we promise we'll keep lists like this coming.
Just like we planned it.
Commandos games were like the isometric precursors to the Hitman games in some ways, only instead of a confusingly handsome lab-grown killing machine, you controlled a crack team of World War II soldiers. Vastly outnumbered and airdropped into unfamiliar territory, you had to inch your way along, looking for opportunities to sneak past, distract, or basically avoid your enemies altogether. And when you did have to get your hands dirty, it was all about taking them out as quickly and quietly as possible, and then hiding the body. Except, why am I using past tense? Commandos 2 is coming back! Calypso Media acquired the rights to both Commandos and Praetorians recently, and yes, there's an HD remaster of that on the way too, by the way. So expect a loving recreation of the notoriously difficult sequel to the notoriously difficult first game before 2020's out. Iron Harvest's been on our radar for a while now, and it looks like the most ambitious RTS for absolutely ages. Firstly, because it imagines a different take on World War I, when technology was a bit more advanced and great lumbering bipedal metal monsters churned up the battlefields beneath their size 1 billion footprints. And secondly, well, just look at it. There's a visual attention to detail in its battles that means I probably wouldn't even mind if I was losing. I'd console myself after each humiliating loss by taking in the realistically splattering debris and all the lovely steam and smoke escaping from the war machines. Lovely reassuring smoke. Smoke can't hurt you. Backers can play the pre-release alpha now, and by the time the full game arrives, there'll be 3 separate narrative-driven campaigns to dig into, which means this may well end up being one of our favourite strategies in 2021 too.
Get ready to fight!
Listen to this, right? What if Gears went XCOM? It all sounds so obvious now in retrospect. The Gears of War games are always sort of turn-based anyway. You pop out of cover and do some shooting, then they do, then you run up to them at a full sprint and cut them in half with a chainsaw bayonet. Sorry, not terribly relevant to my point that I just enjoyed doing that in the Gears games. Plus, half the fun of the plot was trying to figure out which one of Marcus and his impossibly muscle-bound mates would be next to Karkit, just like an XCOM campaign. Set 12 years before the first game, Gears Tactics promises a story-led, turn-based odyssey of big shoulder pads and considered Ukon smashing, not to mention massive boss battles that turn your tried and tested strategies on their head. And while you can't make a squad named after you and your mates and then laugh as Phil Crawford runs off and gets himself killed, you can at least customise Nate Diaz and co to make them feel like your own.
It's time to go hunting.
Not to be confused with that absolutely mental game about being an ape for a billion years that came out last year. That one was Ancestors: The Humankind Odyssey. Humankind is a fresh take on the classic Civ formula. Endless Space developers Amplitude want to go into even more detail, taking the familiar hex tiles and adding a sense of verticality to maps. And those ridges and hills bring new tactical aspects like raining arrows down onto enemies on lower ground, which just looks impossibly satisfying. Zooming out though, Humankind is about doing your best in the moment rather than sticking rigidly to one specific victory condition for thousands of years. In fact, there aren't really even any clear victory conditions here, which is sort of making my head explode. Will it be the end of civilization? We'll find out this year. Age of Empires, the king of historical RTS games. When I was a kid, I'd go around to one particular friend's house and I always noticed that his keyboard was noticeably grubbier around the semicolon button. Do you know why that was? Because that was the shortcut key for build archery range in Age of Empires 2. That is how good it was. And to me, it doesn't even matter that the details are still, well, basically there aren't any details, other than Microsoft promising modernised takes on classic systems and a human-centric take on storytelling. Because when I look at this not quite gameplay footage, but that's what they're calling it, so let's roll with it. I see all the wonderful details I had to just imagine in the old games. Catapults unsettling the ground below them and raising up a plume of dust. Grass swaying in the breeze. Walls crumbling in real time. I don't know how many campaigns there'll be or what multiplayer will be like, but I do know this. My semicolon key is going to get absolutely filthy. When you see the word Troy, you either think of the original bestseller, Homer's Iliad, or if your attention span isn't attuned to thousands of pages of ancient Greek, Brad Pitt looking really great in sandals. The newest Total War saga is probably designed to cater more for the former, but don't rule out its capacity for looking gorgeous under the Mediterranean sun either. That real-time battle engine is really something. These Saga games are standalone spin-offs that focus on a specific historical event rather than covering entire eras. So if your battle skills are already finely tuned in the main series, you don't need to worry here, the mechanics are just the same. But Troy is a deep dive into a famous story. Paris, the Prince of Troy, runs off with Helen from her Spartan palace, causing a right old political storm, and more left clicking than you'd believe. Can't wait. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, it's back. Okay, take a second. Warcraft 3 earned its place into the Strategy Hall of Fame, not just for delivering a tightly balanced fantasy RTS in its own right, but also laying the foundations for the MOBA genre. You can understand the fuss then about a completely built from the ground up remake that you can play in 4K and connect to multiplayer matches in without having to listen to your modem recite its most punishing sounds for 30 seconds every time, like you did in the olden days. Kids, put modem sounds into Alta Vista if you don't know what I'm talking about, and then update your Angel Fire blog about it. It even includes the Frozen Throne expansion right from the off, and it's so faithful to the original that people can still match up against anyone playing the actual Warcraft 3 from 2002 and have a skirmish. Now that is confidence. You know all those mobile games that you see advertised before YouTube videos where millions of one enemy type face off against a gajillion of another? They all owe a debt to Stronghold, the original golden boy of tower defense strategy games. If you don't immediately get a sense of why mowing down a massive tirade of enemy troops with your well-placed fortress defences isn't satisfying, well, I'm not sure I can explain it to you. If you do me a favour and minimise they are billions for a second to mark Stronghold Warlords' imminent release date in your diaries. Taking on an ancient Eastern vibe, it looks pitched to capture the original magic while innovating in user-friendliness and, obviously, in those visuals. If you spend your days hocking tobacco into a spittoon, searching the internet for isometric camera mods in Red Dead 2, and lamenting its lack of magical powers, maybe Desperados 3 is your game. For those who didn't play the originals, think of it like Commandos, call back to our first entry, in the Wild West. Extremely tense micromanagement where you die a lot, watch enemy sight cones even more, and feel absolutely pleased as punch when you get it right. For those who did play the originals, there's no easy way to say this, but look, for some reason, there are magical mind control powers now. I know. Look, maybe it'll be brilliant. A lot of our most anticipated games on this list are straight up remakes that put the word faithful on the back of their boxes, so it's nice to see someone roll the dice. If strategy gaming is the thinking person genre, and it is, obviously it is, then grand strategies like Paradox's Crusader Kings are the thinking person's genre. You're there feeling all proud about how you rammed your cavalry into those archers in Total War and then sacked the settlement, and then you see someone on YouTube playing all of medieval Europe like it's their puppet, using a baffling array of marrying the right people, having members of their court killed, and keeping a tight eye on their outgoings, that sort of thing. All of which is to say, Crusader Kings is so deep and detailed that it's basically a genre unto itself. A significantly bigger and more detailed map is promised this time, along with the biggest and best bits of Crusader Kings 2's enormous DLC trove and more depth in its role-playing elements. That's enough to make me pop 2 upgrade points into the excited skill tree and gain the looking forward to this game trait.
Armies of thousands will be yours to command.
So that's our list, but what about yours? Let's see you in the comments with your own picks for the coming year, and we love a thumbs up here, so leave us one if you liked what you saw. As always, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure the notification bell's on so we can let it ring out with the joyous sound of us uploading a new video. Catch you next time.